This is my first published book, SpitFire, Your Guide to Reignite and Maintain Your Passion at Homework and Beyond. And I wrote this book as a way to tell my story to inspire people to spit their own fire. And what does that really mean? It means that we tell ourselves all of these myths. We absorb these messages of who we think we're supposed to be, these labels, these roles that don't fit with us. And we fake it for a really long time until one day we kind of realize that it doesn't work for us anymore. But we don't always know where to go. We don't know where to turn. We don't know who to ask. We don't know who to trust, really, because we're not really listening to ourselves. And this was my story. Actually, it was almost 3 years to the day. So 3 years ago, I'm getting all of my Facebook alerts. You love the memories. My mom and I were in my packed up Scion XB with my dog in the back in his crate driving from Las Vegas to DC. This is when I restarted my life. I like to call it Lauren 2.0. But I wanted to share my story with you to tell you that you don't have to be an influencer. You don't have to be a celebrity. You don't have to get crazy certifications and degrees to change your life. You have all of the skills, all of the talent, all of the power, all of the motivation within you, but we got to sort out all of the stuff that doesn't work for us. So this is what the book study, the first part of it is for today, for this section, is for you to really embrace your inner SpitFire story. And you all have one, because everyone was born, everyone was put on this planet to do something amazing. And it's up to us to figure out what that is. We're not handed an instruction manual saying, you, Monica, are meant to be an astronaut. You're going to go to Pluto, which I still think is a planet, and you're going to colonize it. We don't get instructions. We don't have a manual on how to do this right. And we're going to make a lot of stumbles along the way. And that's where the fun is. So in order to understand our SpitFire selves and our SpitFire power, we need to understand our origin story. Who makes us who we are? Who are we meant to be? Not who does society tell us to be? Who do our parents tell us to be? Who does school tell us to be? But who do we inherently know in our core is who we're meant to be? And I'm a firm believer that we know all of this when we're kids. Our earliest memories of playing in dirt, playing with dolls, having pure imagination with a blank piece of paper and crayons, our imagination has no restriction. And we might not have had the best childhood or upbringing, but we have this opportunity of really getting inspired and having a completely unrestricted access point to that. But what ends up happening is once we reach this point in our lives, we start to add on these obligations and all of these expectations that block us from this creativity. So if you think about where you were as a child, you know, someone would ask you, what were you meant to be? What do you want to be when you grow up? And you're like, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a teacher, because those are the examples that you see. But rather than the role that you think you want to play, what is it about that role that gets you excited, that makes you passionate, that makes you get that hair-raising moment on your arms or on the back of your neck, and that ooey-gooey fun feeling in your gut? And that is your inner SpitFire. That role, that activity that you do, that you show up as, that inspires everyone around you. And this is where the worksheet that I'm going to be sending out, I actually just put the link up, so if you guys want to look through it, it's understanding your own SpitFire story. Not the story of who people want you to be, but who you were meant to be. So a lot of times when we tell our story, we end up adding these qualifiers or these but then, and it was only this. So we end up devaluing ourselves from the get-go. So I want you to imagine that you and I are meeting for the first time. And I say, who are you? Who are you? What's your story? Now you might tell me your name, where you live, how old you are, if you have some kids, what you do. But what are we missing? What are you not telling me about you that would get me really excited? What are you holding back from your personal story that makes you a magnet to attract and inspire other people? What I realized about my own story is the more vulnerable And the more open I got with my experience, and if you've read chapter 1, you know that I had this crazy good life on paper, but underneath I was not happy, and I was married, and I had a CrossFit gym, and I was working 16 hours a day. But what are those labels that you're telling yourself of the qualifiers of, well, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that special. You are special and you are awesome. And I want you to tap into that. What is it that drives you? If you're a business owner, what is it that drives you to have that business every day? So think about the story of, when you were born, when you became a child, when you became an adolescent, what did you always know to be true about yourself? What did your friends say to you saying, this person is great at this. This person is amazing at this. And what can you do to reinforce that about yourself? So for me, I was a doer for everyone else. I was burning myself out, trying to chase these expectations, these obligations for other people. And I thought that that was my value. I thought that that's what I brought to other people. But what I realized is what I really brought to people was my presence, my intuition, my creativity. But when I showed up for myself, when I believed in myself and I was inspiring myself, it was actually that much more powerful for other people. So if you think about going back to your story, actually I did a little question here that are even beyond this worksheet. So if you don't know your SpitFire power yet, don't worry. We're going to work through all of this stuff. We're going to get some little inklings to help you build this. I want you to think about these questions. What did you hear and absorb about yourself as you were growing up? So what kind of child would other people describe you as? And then, as you grew up, how did these messages impact you? How do they work for you? How do they work against you? Are you attaching a label to yourself and assuming it means something when it could mean something else? So I'm a firm believer that anything that we take on and take in can be used for good. Okay, so Elizabeth says, bossy, stubborn, and ungrateful. So here's the interesting thing. We're going to be able to reframe this. So I want you to find these labels that have held you back, that have stopped you in your tracks, and you're going to be able to reframe it in a way that works for you. So when I see bossy, I see a leader. When I hear stubborn, I mean strong-willed, holds their own. Ungrateful, maybe you're not expressing your gratitude, but maybe you are grateful. So all of these things that we've been told, that we've heard, that we've absorbed as our own, how can we use those as fuel to inspire ourselves? How can we reframe that into a lesson, into a structure that becomes us? So the thing about our past is that we can't just put it in the closet in a shoebox and make it go away. It is a part of us and it is in our storyline. But what we can do is reweave that thread into our fabric in a way that becomes our SpitFire story, our power story. So I used to think of myself as this bratty little girl. Like I was like, I do what I want, blah, 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 which apparently is like another definition of SpitFire. But I carried that label as being the little girl into all of my business dealings. So I was 22, I was an executive director and having meetings with CEOs of companies. And I came in there all like, I'm cute, blah, blah, blah. And I realized that that label of being the little girl may have gotten me in the door and created a relationship, but people didn't respect it. So I had to turn it into, you know what, I'm approachable and I'm unassuming, but man, I'm smart and I know what I'm talking about. So if you let people hold you in that label, in that box, then you'll only get to that point. But if you can use it and leverage it in a way that makes you special, that makes you your own unique voice, then you have the ability to leverage up. So bossy, stubborn, ungrateful, I'm sure you got tons of other words that you heard that don't work for you. This is now your opportunity to rewrite your SpitFire story in a way that catapults you into a whole new level. In your business, in your relationships, in your family, in talking to yourself. So this is the the piece where we can look at the things that have blocked us into the things that we can now have a new awareness tool on. So I want you to release that judgment on yourself. You now have permission. Here's the wand. No more judgment. You did the best you could with what you had, and now you have the ability to rewrite your story where you can come from a place of gratitude if you choose. You can come from a place of feeling loved and accepted and that you're a giver. So this is now your permission slip to rewrite the story in a way that works for you. Because you can continue to tell yourself the same story that holds you in the same pattern that doesn't work for you. That's your choice. But I'm telling you now, you and you alone have the ability to rewrite your story. So I'm handing you your magical pen. This is magic. It's coming through the screen. I want you to grab onto it. Grab it. And I want you to rewrite your story. So all the negativity, all of these blocks, and the things and the stories that you have told yourself that you're not good enough, they no longer exist. These are now your building blocks to make you you. Because here's the thing, if you have this resentment and this past guilt, it will hold you in that space until you learn to recognize what it is. I love it, she totally grabbed it. So grab onto it, grab onto your power, because that's what it means to be a Spitfire. When you can own your decisions, you own your choice, you own your story, and in turn, you can then inspire other people to own their stories. But if you hide behind your story, there becomes this wall and it makes you unapproachable. And if you think about the people you want to do business with, it's the ones that you feel most attached to. You resonate with them. You see yourself in them. And that's our shared human experience. But if you're like this, don't look at me, I can't share this, I'm ashamed of this. People read it on you 10 miles away. And it will block your success every time. So own it, rewrite it in a way that works for you, and share your story. You don't need to share your diary, and this is the big thing. Vulnerability is not about sharing all of the nitty-gritty details about your life. And this is what bit me in the ass when I wrote my first 2 books that never came out. I came from this very guttural place of I have to share my truth. People need to know every minutiae detail, and I have a messy past. I don't think I'm alone in that, but I have a messy past. And I made the mistake of blaming everybody around me for my mess. But I cleaned it up by book 3. And you can share the highlights and your lessons learned without sharing every single thought that you have. You don't need to go and expose yourself if you're not comfortable. And honestly, I don't think you need to. But you share your strength, you share your inspiration, you share your motivation and your story, and that will connect to your customers, your clients, new people, other Spitfires. That openness is your door and your key to success for everything. So I'm going to go and post the worksheet, and I would love it if you guys filled it out. Feel free to email it back to me, or you can message me up at SpitFireCoach.com. My email is lauren@SpitFireCoach.com, and I love that you guys are reading this and commenting. Some people have already flown through all of it. Take your time if you want to, or speed through. It's up to you. There are no rules to this. So I love that you guys hung out with me today for our first book study. Feel free to submit any questions that you have, and I look forward to hearing from you throughout the next couple days and weeks. And keep spitting that fire. Bye, guys.